Good morning. This is the Friday, May 8th meeting of the Standing Policy Committee on Finance and Economic Development. I'm Councillor Jeff Rawadi from the North Kildonan Ward. With me in the room, we have Councillor Matt Allard from St. Boniface. We need to leave a motion. We need a motion to allow Councillor Orlico to participate remotely today. Councillor Allard, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, carried. Councillor Orlico, could you move a leave of absence motion for Councillor Chambers, who is away on city business? All those
moved.
Opposed, carried. I would like to acknowledge that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innu, and Dakota peoples, and in the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 40 First Nation in Treaty 3 territory. We have members of the public service with us. Our committee clerk is Kirk Dolsky, CFO Tracy Graham. It's transit month, so we've got a good group of folks from transit with us this morning. Councillor Allard, could you move that the minutes of the meeting held on April 17, 2026 be taken as read and confirmed? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. I see no delegations, so we can go straight into reports. First report is North Garage placement.
Okay, and so just to name our trouble folks, we have Greg Ingram, our director, Laurie Fisher, the manager of finance, Cumming, the manager of innovation and technology, and Jess Crowder, manager of asset management for the department. And we have our chief construction officer on standby if you have any questions about his report.
Excellent. Very good. Okay, do you want to give us some highlights? I see we have some aerial shots here even.
Yeah, sure. Good morning, everybody. So we did bring some photos. I apologize. Councillor Orlico will send those to you electronically. But there's some recent photos from the project going around. So this is quarterly project status report number 11 for the period ended February 28, 2026. Project is on schedule and on adopted budget. Overall project schedule completion is 64%. Construction at the time of the report was about 8%. And our adopted budget spent was 16%. Just talking about construction activity. So ongoing site construction continues. Through the winter, we've been focusing on structural piling, grade beams, underground utility installations, pile caps, and grade beams. So basically all the underground works, water main installations, land drainage systems of work of that nature. We have a high voltage pad mount type transformer supplier that has indicated delay in the expected delivery of equipment for that electric supply, about 36 working days. So we're working with our contractor and supplier to try to mitigate that. And also in discussion with the province and the federal government of potentially extending the total completion date to like that delay, potential delay, I should say. In terms of schedule, you can see in table 2, we are about 27% towards substantial completion in Q4 of 2027. Total performance is noted as the same Q4. As I said, that might move into Q1 of 2028, depending on that electron or electric equipment. Risks, we have one new risk around that long lead time for the equipment. So I said, we'll continue to work on that, maybe potentially asking for an extension. We have 2 ongoing risks, one around project contingency. So noted in the report, there is no contingency spent to date, but as of today, we have spent approximately $3.9 million in change orders. So we are at risk of running out of project contingency for the project. We're evaluating options for additional funding, and we have work to do in terms of what scope is involved in the project. So we're continuing to look at that. I will note one item in the chief construction officer's report around high risk. We are in that high risk phase of the project, which is construction. Any combination of productivity issues, design clarifications, or supplier delays could draw down contingency quickly, leaving limited ability to absorb further cost pressures. So we are 3 for 3 on those items. And like I said, this is a risk item that we're closely monitoring and very high risk. Financially, as of the end of February, we'd submitted 7 claims to the province for payment totaling just over $13 million. For the provincial and federal portions, we'd received just over $6 million. If I can jump to Appendix B for 1 second. Actual costs to the end of February, we've seen about $31.163 million. Engineering design of just under 8. Construction costs starting to surpass that, $13.8 million. Land acquisitions remains the same, around 8.5, and some financing, interest, and overhead. So that is 15.6% of the adopted budget spent to date. Going back to the main report, Funding model has not changed and we have no property stakeholder or subsequent events this time. Any question?
Start with one here. Do you have any information on the nature of the change orders?
I do. So the bulk of them to this point, as we're going into piling and the foundation work, we've encountered subgrade and soil conditions that were poorer than we anticipated. So the bulk of it has been importing suitable clay material and redoing some piles that didn't meet refusal and grade work. So that's been almost all of the cost to date so far. Obviously some other minor things, but
The questions?
Counselor,
We do have the chief construction officer here as well. He has a report that's attached. And he's
yeah, well, I mean, in yellow, there's 2027 Q4 at risk for forecast, ready for takeover date. And I don't know if it's the public one, so it's not comment on that.
yeah, that is tied to that electrical transformer that we're looking at potential delay for it. So that's what that's like.
So what happens if it's not there?
That's why I say we're working with the supplier to try to bring that delay down, or we may extend the total completion date. So it doesn't affect substantial completion, but it may affect total completion.
And then does that essentially mean that the buses aren't running if the facilities aren't there?
No, not necessarily. So there's a period of time, I guess, just to clarify. So current schedule is end of 27 roughly to finish. And then there's a period of time there, say 3 to 6 months, where we're going to have to transition from the existing North Main garage into this new facility and operate out of that. We'll try to tie that to a schedule change. So
Okay,
a bit of leeway there in terms of maybe putting a bit more pressure on we, so to speak.
okay, that sounds good. Thank you.
Questions for the Raj folks? Okay, you're none. Somebody ready to move the report?
I'll move it.
Okay, Councillor Aller, thank you. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Carried. Thank you. Transition to Zeb.
All right, so similar status report number 11, project is on schedule and on budget, percent complete and schedule 61%, budget spent 48%. In terms of the buses themselves, we have a few contracts with New Flyer for these buses. The original tender was 16 zero emission buses. Time of the report, we had 15 on property. We have received the last bus in March, so we have all of those buses now on property. We did have a few recalls from Transport Canada related to windows, batteries, and some ABS systems that we're working through. First extension of that contract was 24 battery electric 40-foot buses that started in October of last year. We've received the first bus on schedule in February, and we've started to receive those buses and inspecting, testing, and putting them into service, getting them at about 1 or 2 a week until June. Second extension on that contract, there are 2 contracts in that extension. So the first one, we had a pre-production meeting in early January for 25 40-foot electric buses. Those are expected to start in September and deliveries later this year into April of next year. Those will be fully built in Winnipeg. We had a second contract under that extension for up to 15 40-foot battery electric and up to 12 hydrogen fuel cell battery electric. So New Flyer is working on a schedule to combine the 2 orders and will be working with us to try to figure out when those will arrive, but we expect to see those coming in subsequent to the first one, so April to July of next year. In terms of charging infrastructure, we have been starting work on the phase 2 chargers in combination with phase 1. So that work is essentially complete. We have 13 chargers and 46 dispensers delivered in January. Hydro started work in February to connect power for our electric equipment, and we're on track to complete that in June. The hydrogen fueling station, we've had some delays in terms of weather and some underground conditions, I'll say. Old transit is on an old rail yard, so we kind of found some old rail foundations under our parking lot. So equipment has arrived on our property. It's starting to go in. The report notes April and May. We're looking at May for completion of the equipment and commissioning mid-June now. Risk, we have one new risk around building permits. At the time, we were working through some challenges on the building permit front for the hydrogen station just due to sort of what I'll call unique nature. It's kind of a bit of a different approach for Manitoba. So we worked through that with the city and the province. In the meantime, we have two risks around tariffs. We're still working with New Flyer to understand what the impact of tariffs might be on the buses, if there are some, and how the details of that might come out. And then we have the production lead time. So we're working with New Flyer as well, relaying to them what we need to receive on property by our ICIP project deadlines. And they have agreed to those dates. Financially, as of the end of February, we'd submitted 12 claims to the province for payments of $89.6 million, and we've received $85.3 million. Looking at Appendix B for this report, actual cost in February, $135.8 million, 134 of that under the construction category, which is charging and hydrogen construction, but obviously the bulk of that was buses. And then some engineering design and other, and interest in financing costs. So 48% of the adopted budget spent at the end of February. And then the only other item is that subsequent report, which I mentioned, received our the last bus of our first order. So
So all the buses that we have as part of this program are ISA funded and. Okay. And so when we're done the full program, how many, what's gonna be the final breakdown in terms of the bus makeup, the ZEBs?
we're looking at about, I'll give you ranges because we're still kind of working
Oh,
through.
it's still not done.
Well, we're sort of done in terms of ordering, but we have potentially maybe we might tack on a bus or two depending on how the numbers end up in the end with tariffs and
Right.
and everything else.
Okay.
So we're looking at about say 90 to 95 zero emission in total and about 80 to 85 diesel.
I know that 90 to 95, it's mostly electric, not fuel cell.
Yeah.
How many fuel cell?
We would be in the order of about 20, I believe.
How many
20,
still?
yeah. Double check that, but
And to date, you've had 50. Battery?
to date we've had 8. The original order was 8 and 8.
Okay, right.
Yeah, and then the second order, we're starting to get in those buses. Those are all more battery electric at this point. We have that additional up to 12 hydrogen, which will start next year.
Okay.
Yeah, we're really kind of looking at the 8 right now, hydrogen.
And again, the 8 and 8 have been delivered. It's half, 40, half 50 foot?
40 and 60.
40 and 60, okay.
But half and half,
Yeah.
you're right.
I don't do this every day. I'm just.
No, lots of numbers.
What's 10 feet?
I'm not gonna say anything, give me in trouble here. Okay,
I'll just, Chairperson?
yes,
Probably, well, I'll just ask, so at what point do we have the chief construction officer reporting? Because I noticed the first report has a report, the second doesn't, and I realize it's not a
I can
construction.
answer that question, or the
Oh,
CFO probably could.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, or the CFO could.
So as part of the mandate that was approved by council for the chief construction officer, his reports really only attach to the construction related projects. So that there's a couple projects that come here for update that won't include it, and zero emission is one. And the water meter renewal program is another, and I think the third is the SCADA report, which we get once a year.
Okay.
So there's 3 reports.
Zero emissions are part of the program, right? Or
Yeah.
purchase. So
Purchasing a good, not a construction product.
Okay,
But the rest are construction projects and they'll have a report attached.
Sense?
yeah, thank you.
How much are these 16 buses on the streets now? Of the 16 ZEB buses that we've received.
I don't know what percentage that they're on, but I see them being dispatched. There's some buses that are still part of a recall program. So those less so. New Flyer is working through those, as well as for hydrogen. We're getting hydrogen from New Flyer.
Right.
So we have to manage that. So it delays getting them out on the street a little bit, but certainly with the plant coming online soon, that'll rectify that issue as well.
How long does it take to charge a electric bus?
That's a great question.
We're there.
Yeah, we need Aaron too.
Okay, yeah, it's fine. It's fine if you're not ready for that then.
Yeah, because it depends.
It varies, yeah.
We've got 2 different battery packs in right
All
now,
right, so yeah.
so it's not just a straight answer.
Yeah, you did mention that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how about the hydrogen? Once our own plant is up, how long does it take to fill a hydrogen bus?
My understanding is it's just as quick as fueling up a diesel bus, right?
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause it's a fluid going in,
Right.
so, yeah.
And that fueling all happens outdoors?
Correct.
What about diesel right now? Is that indoors or outdoors fueling?
That is indoors.
It is.
Yeah, we have two tracks that we bring the buses in and they're set up for fueling and all the other things they need to do, such as oil top up and such.
Is hydrogen more dangerous or something, or is that why it needs to be outdoors, or is there?
My understanding is it's just something you want to do outdoors.
Okay.
It's similar to when buses are being run on methanol as well. They're outdoor fuel typically. Right? And it saves you in some of the costing for the things that you need to do to bring that indoors, right?
I saw the natural gas. I toured the natural gas garage in Calgary, and the blowout windows and stuff they have to do for it, and the air circulation systems in the rest of the garage are pretty wild.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the infrastructure needed is quite more intense, that's for sure.
Any other questions on this report?
I can move it.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Allard. All those in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, and our final report for today. Thank you. Verbal report on the financial status of the automated fare collection system project.
Thank you. This is a verbal report, but I thought I would provide some visuals just to help along the verbal report, if that's okay.
Please.
So, right, everybody can see that online, I hope.
Yep.
Okay. So just to remind us where we are, what we've got, we started with the PEGO system that's been in place since 2013. It's what's called stored value or closed loop system, where the source of truth of the balance is actually stored on the card itself. It has some special features that allow for online purchasing, but they were not sort of in the original envisioning and the design of that type of smart card system. This technology is now out of date. It's not meeting customer expectations. It has a lack of flexibility to implement fare policy. It's time to replace it. And so what we're going to look like? It is going to be a modern digital system, a system for digital payments. We would retain the old system for cash transfers, the old fare boxes. We would decommission the digital portions of that system. And we would have a system that is more real-time and would meet customer expectations. And some of the things that you'd see are what are called open payments. So that's credit and debit. So just tapping your credit card or your debit card on the way in. We would have app-based payments where you could have something like a digital wallet or an app you could use with a smartphone and just tap that on the way in. And we'd also be looking at account features such as fare optimization and capping. So that would be the ability to just have somebody ride the bus without having to make a decision about whether they're buying a pass for this month, and then calculate that at the end of the month and see what the optimal purchase would be for them. So how do we get there? We've been working on this for a while now, as everybody's probably aware. We put together the business case, we established the budget, we worked on some strategy development that sort of guided what we were looking for. And now we're in the procurement phase. And so what we are in the middle of is procurement, and then after that comes project implementation. But I want to talk a little bit about the procurement because we're not actually in the implementation just yet. That's normally what people like Jess are talking about in these types of meetings. But the procurement that we're working on is kind of a new approach, and I just want to talk about that because I think it's notable. So traditionally, when we procured these types of systems, we use a traditional RFP. It's usually referred to as a binding or a contract A RFP. And it's really something that's designed for construction. You kind of put out all of your specs and all of your requirements, and that forms what's called contract A. It's a binding document. And then the proponents respond with what's called contract B, which is their proposal. And the combination of those two things becomes the contract. What we are looking at is a newer approach because the problems, when you're using these types of approaches, you may not know everything when you create that RFP to start with. And, sometimes this is helped by an RFI or an RFQ, but that is a separate process. It doesn't always take place. Because you're locked into those contracts, it doesn't allow the city to negotiate more favorable terms if you sort of come to learn things over the course of the procurement. It doesn't allow the city to adjust requirements or expectations if we find out new things from what the proponents are offering. And it gives very black and white requirements that are basically yes or no requirements, which don't have a sort of a nuance to allow us to select the best vendor. So what we've been working with purchasing and legal on is something called a negotiated RFP. This is something that not just the city of Winnipeg is working on, but many other governments and other businesses are starting to use these approaches. It's a multi-stage process. Nothing is binding until negotiation. At every stage, we're refining the information that's gathered, and it generally involves the elimination of one or more bidders as you proceed through these different phases. And you end up with a short list at the end, and then these are the proponents that we negotiate with at the end. So just to illustrate this, what we're doing here, the stages for the current procurement that we're working on, you start with stage 1, which is just the posting and the initial intent to bid, and there's an unlimited amount of proponents that can come in there. Then we move on to stage 1.5, which is a sort of a screening step where we ask them to submit a short form proposal. And based on those short form proposals, we sort of whittle it down to a shorter list of 8. Then we move on to stage 2, where they submit a detailed written proposal, which is the sort of more similar to what we would have received in traditional RFPs. This is a 200-page proposal. After we look at and evaluate these proposals, we'll have it down to a list of 4. Then we do demonstrations. These are detailed scripted demonstrations. Excuse me. We will likely be sitting with each of those different 4 vendors for several days, sort of taking a look and seeing is, can they show us what they said that they can do in their proposals? This is something that we're really concerned about, is not just to have the proponent's word about this is how our system works, but to actually see it in practice and be able to test it and evaluate exactly the details of how their functionality works. So then we'll have it down to a shorter list of 3. They will submit their pricing proposals, and then we will proceed to negotiate, starting with the most advantageous bidder that we see. So where we are right now is in stage 2. So at this point, the bidders that are left from the initial screening are submitting their detailed proposals, and we're looking to evaluating those by June. So after we have awarded, we're still there's still no official timeline, but we're looking towards the end of the year. In the strategy that we developed earlier, the consultants estimated 12 to 18 months for implementation, starting from the date of award. And so in the preliminary proposals from the bidders, we had project plans submitted. So that also gives us an idea of what real implementation is going to look like based on their experience from other implementations. So yeah, we haven't really, spent any money, significant amounts on this project yet, because we're sort of waiting for award. But once the award hits, then we will be in the ground running and really getting this project going. That's really all I had to say. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Anything else before I go?
Go ahead.
My understanding was there was a contract to sort of scope some of the features and stuff we were looking for. Has the department landed on certain, features and designs like the fare capping that have been decided, or there's discussion about different types of ways to accommodate things like the free transit for 12 and under, and perhaps now 18 and under, how those would be counted or carded even.
Yeah, so right now what we're looking at is what we'll call the capabilities of the system, right? So we have a big list of, your system has to be able to do this, has to be able to do that. And not only that, but you need to demonstrate how does your system achieve this? How does your system work? So right now at this point, we're at the point of selecting the most suitable technology that will allow us to do all the things that we need, and those certainly, those different programs that we have, whether it's the existing programs around youth riding free or things like that, whether it's the UPass program, whether it's the WinPass or the EcoPass, and all sorts of programs that we have. They have to be able to accommodate those programs, as well as all of the features that we would like to implement in terms of convenience for the rider and ability to use all the different payment methods that they have at their disposal. In terms of the specific implementation, we're sort of waiting to see what they bring to the table, because we don't want to be too prescriptive and say it must work this way, it must work that way. We want to see how they implement it, and sort of once we have selected the best vendor, then we sort of work on how we configure their system to do what we need it to.
Has the department come forward to, like, probably be the Public Works Committee, not necessarily this committee? Has the department come forward to the Public Works Committee to float or discuss any ideas of, changes to our programs? I mean, I appreciate, we need the technology to meet our needs, but on the flip side, I mean, if there's other transit systems that are doing things in a different way that makes more sense and perhaps is even more compatible with more vendors and more great technology, have you guys gone to Public Works already to ask any questions about, hey, what if would this be a consideration if we did, I don't know, the EcoPass differently or something like that? Has that discussion come up to ask for potential changes to Transit's current product offerings to be more market friendly, if you will, even?
Yeah, so we worked on the fare collection strategy sort of late last year, early this year.
Did that come forward as a report? I don't remember.
Yeah, that came forward
Okay.
to Public Works.
Thank you.
And that put forward a broad outline of sort of the strategy that we want to adopt, but it didn't sort of delve into the detailed implementation of each one of those different changes or those different things that we want to enable. So, if you're talking about, for example, making EcoPass work differently, that wouldn't be the level of detail that we've gotten to at this point yet. And so that would be something that, as a part of the implementation of the project, we would be working in parallel to decide any changes that we want to make to policy. Fare capping is a good example, right? So once we see what the technology is capable of, and once we come to some policy decisions on how we would use that, then we would put that forward to committee and make some decisions.
Councillor Olico has his hand up now, I see. Go ahead.
Thank you. One question, first of all, have you done a scan of the providers and made sure that any Canadian provider is aware of the opportunity?
Yes, that's the answer is yes.
Okay, perfect. And I gather this will be a debate probably in finance, or I'm not sure where I'll go. If a project comes in pretty similar in scope, because it sounds like the different types of services and all the variables you put in this, which I understand the RFP is restrictive. This is very wide open. So you're going to have a lot of things, maybe A here, but maybe a B there. So my point is, would that change in your matrix to say, okay, this Canadian company is pretty damn close. So would you be choosing that Canadian company over an American company? Or was it just going to be straight bottom line numbers?
That's a question I'd have to talk to purchasing about. I would have to take a look at the details within our agreement. I don't believe we have any particular statement within there, but I'd have to take a look at the details with purchasing.
So yeah, again, I'm not sure. I know the CFO has mentioned a few times that we're waiting for the Buy Manitoba, which sounds interesting now because I've seen the Buy Canada one. That seems kind of, I'm not sure how it's really Buy Canada. So I guess we're waiting on the Buy Manitoba before we decide to do our own policy, which I don't agree with. I'm only one person. So my concern definitely is that with the tariffs that they put onto our buses, and then we're just going, well, that's too bad for us, but we're going to now buy all these things from an American firm. Come on, guys. We got to put our elbows up, as they say, a little bit here. But so I want to keep an eye on the ball on this one. If we can make sure, that the Canadian firms are aware of it, which you said you have, great. And hopefully it's just not lowest bidder with surprise. I think there are other factors that should be involved. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
Again, we're moving along the piece here without saying anything that you can't say publicly. I mean, I guess the number of people who bid on Mercs would probably be public. You know, you were suggesting the first phase would be around 8, I mean, unlimited and then down to 8. Have we seen that many vendors, interested in this?
Yeah, I don't know if it's public information in terms of how many have
Okay.
come in or how many have come through.
Can you say it's healthy at least?
In general, it's healthy. Yes, I
Okay.
can definitely say
So that's, don't want to say anything you can't say, but just,
I think it's indicative of the fact that the type of bid that we're putting out is in line with what's out in the market.
okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Councilor Lawrence?
No.
Well, I appreciate you guys doing this again. You know, this is the cash register of transit. I mean, it's over $100 million a year business. So just knowing that, the cash register is working is kind of important. I'm hearing and seeing sometimes evidence that maybe it's not working as well as it needs to right now. So I thought that was appropriate to bring this here today. And I think that was a great presentation, just a good status and
Well, one other further, would this presentation be available attached to the agenda? Because I know it's verbal.
yeah, it's gonna be
Would it?
2 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, other councilors may be interested. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Thanks, John. Okay, with that, somebody want to move to receive this verbal report as information?
So moved.
Thanks, Councilor Overkill. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
It's carried. That takes us to the end here. 31 minutes. Look at that. Somebody want to move consent and adjournment?
So
Oh,
moved.
sorry, we actually have one other new business. That's
Oh.
right. Thank you. And the request is to get that update. The comment was made, I think it was Councilor Mays. We brought it up on the floor of council. The St. James Civic Center, even though no component of it is over $25 million, the multi-phase project is certainly over 25.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
So the request was to get an update at this committee. Okay, so Councilor Allard, would you move
Motion.
to allow us to have this item in new business? Okay, all's in favor?
Aye.
And the item of new business, who wants to move this one? John or Matt?
So moved.
Was this a verbal report and in how many days are you looking?
60 days too short, do you think? Or 60 is fine? For a 60 for verbal report on St. James Civic Center combined projects, that'd be great. Okay, thanks, everyone. Okay. Councilor Allard Councilor Orley can move that, we'll say. All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. And that brings us down to consent adjournment. Thank you, Madam Clerk, for reminding me there.
I can move that.
Okay, Councilor Allard moves that. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You're done.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for making it, John.
No problem. Thanks.